Hello, welcome. I'm Andreas, your tech-curious web designer. In this tutorial, we're getting started with building the backend for our TikTok clone application using Django. Django is one of the most popular and powerful backend frameworks ever created because it has many important features already built in, such as a development database, an admin panel, and advanced security features. It is free and open source with a huge active community behind it, and many big applications such as Instagram and Pinterest are using it. But before we get started, if you like this content, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. This helps me to grow this channel and to reach more aspiring web developers. And if you want to support my work financially, you can subscribe to my Patreon page and get access to exclusive content. Thank you so much, I really appreciate you. Okay, and now without further ado, let's dive in. A big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, buymeacoffee.com and on YouTube. And a special shout out to my newest supporters Alexander, Dan and Bill. Thank you. Here I'm inside my project in Visual Studio Code, and now we want to connect the templates we have created in the last tutorials to the backend. But before we get started, I will add two useful extensions to Visual Studio Code when writing Python code. So I'm going here to extensions, and one package I recommend is Python. This adds useful syntax highlighting and detects bad formatting. And another one I'm using is Python Indent. This helps with the automatic indentation of Python code, because Python only works when the indentation is correct. Okay, these two extensions are very useful when writing in Python. As next, let's check if we have Python already installed on the computer. And we can do this with Python 3, so version 3 is the current version. --version. And if you see here our version number, you got Python already installed. But if you still need to install it, or you want to have the latest version, head over to python.org and go through the installation for your operating system. As next, we will install a virtual environment. A virtual environment is always recommended to keep all the packages and dependencies used in your project isolated on your computer. There are many ways to create a virtual environment, but the easiest for beginners is to use the VNV module, which comes built in with Python. And I set it up with Python 3-m. This is to select a Python module, then VNV, this is the name of the module, and then you can give it a name in your project, but I just call it again VNV. Then press enter, and this created now the VNV folder in our project. Inside we find the bin folder, which contains executables and scripts, for example this activate script to activate the virtual environment. Let's do that now. To activate it on a Mac or Linux, I write source. Source is a shell command to run scripts. I'm going into my VNV folder, /bin/activate, and run the activate script. So with this we activated the virtual environment, and we can see that by the VNV in parentheses in front of the prompt. The include folder is used for special packages, and lib is the library folder where Python installs all the packages we need for our project. Right now the only package we have installed in there is pip, which is Python's package manager, which lets us install other packages from the PyPI repository on the internet. Next, let's install Django using pip. So pip install and then Django. As mentioned before, when we install packages, it is very important that we are inside a virtual environment to keep the specific versions together with the project. Okay, and then I press enter. And as we can see here, it installed Django in the lib folder and also its dependency packages Django relies on. We can also check out the official Django website on djangoproject.com. Here you can find the documentation and other useful informations, and if you click on download here, we can see here the pip command we just used. When we're inside a virtual environment, we normally can skip the python-m command at the start. And by default, it is downloading the latest version. But if you want to install a specific version, you can do it this way. And on this page, we can also see that Django is releasing a new update every 8 months. So it is recommended to upgrade Django regularly to have always the latest security and utility features up to date. Okay, back to the code. So Django is now installed in our virtual environment, and now we need to initialize a Django project. And we do this with the command django-admin space, then start project, and then we choose a name for the project, or more specifically for the folder which contains the Django settings and configuration files. And I typically call this the core folder, and I will prefix it with an underscore, so it always stays the first folder in my project structure. And then I also add a dot, so the dot means install this core folder inside the current directory. Without a dot, it would create an additional folder. Okay, then press enter. And as we can see, we got this core folder at the very top here. Inside we have the configuration files. The first one is the danda init file. This file is telling Django that this folder is a Python package and part of the Django project. It is using double underscores. These are called danda, short for double underscores, and are used for special Python methods. Then we have here the ASCII and the whiskey.py files. These are entry points for web servers to communicate with the Django application. ASCII stands for Asynchronous Server Gateway Interface, and we would use this when writing asynchronous code, for example to create a real-time chat application. But by default, Django is using the whiskey file, which stands for Web Server Gateway Interface. Then we have the most important file, the settings.py file. This file contains all the configurations for this Django application. For example, here we can see the installed apps, which are features or modules of the application. The middleware, these are important for security and session management. And for example, also the database configurations. And then we also have the urls.py file, which contains the routing for the application. Here we list all the URL paths the application is using. And one other file it created is this manage.py file. And this file is used to run Django commands in the application, for example to start up the server. And let's do this now. So in the terminal, I write here Python, manage.py, and the run server command. And enter. And now the development server is up and running. We are getting here at first 2 warning messages. The first one here in red is basically just saying that we have not migrated yet to the database. Django comes with a couple of tables for user authentication. We will do that later when we start using the database. And the default database we're using, we can see here. It's called SQLite 3. This is a very lightweight database, ideal for local development. However, in production, we will replace it with a Postgres database, which is much more powerful and secure. And the other warning is that we are using a development server, which we should not use when going live on the internet. In production, we can use, for example, gunicorn for a whiskey server or Daphne for an ASCII server. Alright, and Django gives us here the URL where we can access the website. So let's copy this link and paste it into the browser. And here we have already a running Django application with Django's default landing page. We can also access this page when writing localhost :8000 instead of the IP address. Okay, next let's display the homepage template here we have created in the last tutorials. So first I shut down the server with pressing Ctrl and C. And now we need to create a new app with the logic how to display this page. And we create a new app with the command Python manage.py, then the command start app, and then the name of the app, and I'm calling this app posts, because it will include the logic to display and create the posts, and I prefix it with a underscore. This is again to place it in my project hierarchy below the core folder, but above the other folders. Okay, then press enter. And this created the post folder here, containing specific files for this app. As first we have the migration folder, this keeps track of the database migrations. Then we have here again the Danda init file. We have the admin and the apps.py files. They're used for the admin panel and app configuration. In the models.py file, we define the tables for the database. The test file is used for writing tests. Experienced programmers would usually write tests before they write the actual code, a practice called test-driven development. However, as beginners, we often skip testing at the start, but tests become very useful in more complex applications. And last, but definitely not the least important file, the views.py, where we write the logic for the app. And here we define a function to display the page. And to define a function in Python, you write def for define. I give this function a name home_view. This takes in the request object. This request object comes from the front-end client and contains many useful information, for example, if the user is logged in or not. Then I add the return statement. This is the response we're sending back. Here we can see return is indented, which is very important in Python, with 4 spaces or a tab. Then we add the render function. The render function sends back a rendered HTML page to the browser. It takes in again the request object. This is called the request response cycle in Django. And then we add the template we want to render. In this case, the home.html file. Okay, this is all we need for this function. Let's save this file. However, Django does not know where this template lives. It lives in our templates folder, and we need to tell Django that this folder exists. For this we need to add a configuration to our settings file, so let's go to the core folder, here to settings.py, then we go to the templates configuration section, and here at dirs, which stands for directories, we list our templates folder. Square brackets are used to define a list of items, and in here I add the path to the templates folder. Base_dir is a variable which points to the root directory of the project, and then /templates. Okay, save this file. Now that we have the template, let's add now the URL. So I'm going to the urls.py file. As first we have to import here the function we just created. And we do that with from a_posts, this is the app folder, .views. With a dot we can access a file or module within a Django app, such as the views.py file. And then import the home view function. But we can also import everything in the file with the asterisk. Like this. Then to create the URL, we add here the path function. So inside the URL patterns here, I add here a blank path. This is the root of the domain. And this path is calling the home view function. And then I give this URL also a name. And I call it home. In this way, we don't have to hardcode the URLs in our template, but we can use the name to point to the URL. And we could also change the path without breaking the link. And at the end we add a comma. Alright, let's save this file, and with this we should see now our home template displayed on the site. Let's check it out. I start up the server again. When clicking the up arrow on the keyboard we can go to the previous commands. Here we have the start app command, and before that we had the run server command. Then press enter, and let's check it out. I refresh the page. And there we go, our home template is now displayed. However, without the images, Django does not know yet where the images are saved. Let's fix that. This is again a configuration in the settings.py file. At the bottom of this file we have the static URL variable. This defines the path how Django will serve them in the URL, so with static slash. However, it does not point to the folder where the files are stored. And we can do this with the variable static files underscore dirs. And we set this again to a list and add here the static folder in the base directory. Okay, let's save this file. Let's check it out. I refresh the page. And as we can see here, the images in the static folder, such as the logo, are now displayed. However, the images we have saved in the media folder, these are files the user would upload to the application, are still missing. Let's also fix that. So in the media folder, we have saved the image for the post and the avatar image. So first we add here the media URL and set this to media slash, but this can be any name you want. It doesn't have to match the folder name. And with the variable media underscore root, we tell Django where these files are stored in the project. So in the base directory slash media. Okay, save this file. However, we need to add one more thing to make this work. And this is a configuration in the urls.py file, because Django's built-in run server by default is not set up for serving media files. In production, media files are typically handled by a separate media server altogether, which is optimized for serving media and static files. So we go to urls.py. Here we add a section for this configuration, which is only needed in development. And we can check if we are in the development environment with settings.debug. So if this debug variable in the settings.py file is true, we add this configuration. Let's quickly have a look at the settings.py file. Here right now debug is set to true. With this setting it shows a detailed error page when there is an error in the application. This is very useful during development because it helps to understand what went wrong. But in production, we will set this to false, as we don't want to show this page to the users. That's why we also have this security warning here. Okay, let's go back. As we can see, we have a squiggly underline at settings. That means this component is missing in this file. Let's import it. And we import it with from django.conf import settings. Then indentation. Then if debug is true, I can extend the URL patterns with plus equal. Then I add here the static function. Let's also import static. So from django.conf.urls.static import static. Then first we add here the media URL, which we defined in the settings file. Then comma. And then we set the document root to the media root. Alright, save this file. Let's check it out. I refresh the page. And great, as we can see, also our media files are now displayed. Nice.
Nice.
Right now, our home template here is stored in the global templates folder. However, to keep files organized, we should move the templates belonging to our app inside the app folder. Let's do that now. Okay, let's move the home.html file inside the post folder now. And for this we create here a templates folder. And inside the template folder I create a new folder with the name of the application. So a_posts. In this way we keep the files inside the template structure organized. And then I move the home.html file inside this folder. Okay, and because we updated now the location of this home.html file, we have to go to the views.py file and update here the path. Okay, save this file and check out the page. But we got here an error page, and we can see this page because debug is set to true. And as we can see, it can't find the template we just moved to the post app. And this is because we forgot one crucial step. So Django does not recognize this template folder. And although this app is recognized as a Python package, we have not added it yet to the installed apps. So it won't load things like templates and files. As well, it won't run database migrations and show the app in the admin panel. Let's add it now to the installed apps. So we're going back to the settings.py file. And here in installed apps, I create a section with my apps. This is just a comment. And I add here the a_posts app. Let's save this file and let's check it out. I refresh the page. And now this template is found. Awesome. Another improvement I will add now is to load the static images dynamically on the page using Django's static template tag. I go to the home.html file. And as we can see, right now we're using the relative path to the static files, like here with the favicon. A much better method is to let Django handle the connection, using the static tag. So at the very top of this file, I add 2 curly brackets, then 2 percentage signs, and inside I write load static. So this is loading the static tag to this file. And this static tag generates the correct path to the static folder. Then in the URL, instead of hard-coding the path, we let Django generate the path. For this we add here again the curly brackets with the percentage signs. Then static. Then inside the quotes I add the folder and the file name. Okay, this is how template links are generated. Let's do the same now for the logo as well. Again the static tag and the folder and file name. This is for the icon on mobile view, and then again for the dark mode logos. Alright. One last thing I still want to add is a quality of life feature. So right now we still have to reload the page every time we want to see an update on our Django site. However, we can install a Python package which does this automatically for us when a file gets saved. And the package I want to install is the Django Browser Reload, which we can download from the PyPI repository. We can see here the installation. So let's copy the pip install command. I shut down the server with Ctrl+C and run this command in the terminal. So now this package is installed successfully. Next we have to add it to our installed apps. So I'm going to my settings.py file. I make another section for third-party applications. And add here Django Browser Reload. Then we have also to install a middleware. And because I'm using this application only in development, I will add here again a condition. So if debug is true, we extend the middleware with the middleware of this package. Okay, let's save this file. Additionally, we also need to add a URL, so we go to the urls.py file. And as we only need it in development, I add it here to the if statement, if debug is true. Again, extending the URL patterns. And then add here this path, which includes the URLs for this package. Let's import the include function. So here under django.urls import path, comma, include. Alright, save this file. Now let's start up the server. Python manage.py run server. Okay. Let's refresh the site one more time. And now let's test it by changing the text for you to home. So I'm going to the home.html file. Here we have For You in the sidebar. I change this to Home. Save this file. And as we can see, it refreshed the page automatically. Nice. Now let's change it back. Alright, and this is all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. In the next video, we will look into Django's templating system, where we will extend a base template for all our pages. If you like this content, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon not to miss the next video. I hope to see you there. Until then, happy coding my friends, and bye bye for now.